Hi. People ask me, when was the very first time that you knew you were psychic? Well, I didn't really know I was psychic at the time that it happened, but it started when I went to my Aunt Nita's funeral. You know, my dad, I was born in East LA. My dad was the baby of 11 kids, and I was the baby of the baby. So I was going to funerals my whole life. And the first funeral I went to, I probably was about 6 or 7. And it was really strange because I'm looking at one person crying, and it was an Irish wake, and everybody else is drinking, telling stories, having a big party, you know. And so it was a little confusing. And that night when we got home from the funeral, my dad was sitting at the kitchen table and shaking a beer to see if it was time for another. And I was, and telling stories because he always told stories. He was talking to one of the relatives there. And so I waited till he was done, and I went up and I said, "Daddy," and I'm tugging on his shoulder. I says, "What happens when you die?" And he says, "Well, you go on the ground and the worms eat you up. So have a good time while you're here, honey, because this is all there is." And I went like, and I said, "Okay," and I went into my room, crawled into bed next to my sister, and I'm lying there like seeing myself get ate up by a bunch of worms, and I said, "God, I don't think Daddy's right." And I says, "What happens when you die?" And I hear this voice. It was the first time I heard the voice. And the voice said, "The love lives forever. You only live the bad things here." And I thought, oh, that sounded better, And so then I thought, oh, my goodness, I feel so much better. I had other questions since I had this voice talking to me. And I said, well, how can you hear God? How can you hear everybody's prayers? Because there are so many people in the world, and they all must be talking at once. And how can you hear their prayers? And this voice, just clear as a bell, said, "Because I'm inside you. So everything you think, I hear." And I thought, oh, okay, that made sense. He was inside everybody. Okay. And, so I'm on a roll here with this big conversation thing, and each one I'm feeling a little bit better. And I said, well, what about hell? Is there a hell? And this voice says, hell, I said, is it burning? And, I'm asking this question in my mind, all the things I'm afraid of, because, I've heard all of these stories. And it says, hell is someone that you love, knowing all the bad things that you said about him. And I went, whoa, I have to be a little carefuler about what I say, And so that was the first time I heard the voice, And I don't know where it came from or, anything, but I hear little voices. The next time I remember vividly hearing it, my brother was throwing slugs at me. They were building an apartment next door, and he was throwing slugs at me, and I wore glasses, and he hit the glass, and all the glass went into my eye. And I was about maybe 8 years old, and I was getting ready to rub my eye, and I heard this voice scream out at me, "Don't touch your eye," just like that. And I didn't touch my eye, and, my mother went and carried me in the house and took a Q-tip and pulled out 7 pieces of glass from my eye, and then took me to an eye doctor who said, if your daughter would have just touched her eye once, she would have lost her eye. So, that's when the voices started. Now, I would hear them once in a while, but they didn't, as I became a teenager, really, they kind of went away. And it wasn't until I started working with people all the time that the voices got real, came out a little bit more. And not weird voices or not, psychotic voices. It was just when I needed help. When I needed help, I would ask a question, and the answer comes with a question. So I would ask a question, and I would get an answer, And so I was sitting there reading the hands of men when I was working with men's sexuality and men's sexual dysfunctions. And I had learned neurolinguistic programming and how to read their eyes and linguistically what was going on. But I heard this voice. And this voice said, look at their hands, Linda. Their hands will tell you something that their mouth and their eyes won't. And this voice wouldn't go away, And so I looked at their hands, and I started learning how to read the hands that way, not out of the book, but by looking at what was in front of me and how they held their hands out. So periodically when I need to, I'll hear voices, Another time when I said, God, I've raised 38 foster kids, 3 kids of my own, 4 step-parents. What am I doing alone? And I've been married 3 times, and I thought, what am I doing alone? So I asked the question, and the voice said, when I said, why am I alone? The voice said, because you never learned to love yourself. And I thought, oh. So I kind of put on my party hat for that, and I said, okay. And I said, well, I'm feeling empty because I was waking up gasping for air for 3 months after a divorce, just going like that. And so this voice, I said, I know I'm a hypnotist. I got to fill myself up with something, because I'm feeling empty now. So what do you want me to put in? And the voice said, I love you, Linda. And I thought, I'm not going to say I love you. I just laughed at an egomaniac, And it said, no, to what's inside. And so I said, I love you, Linda. And I felt chills going all the way down my arm. And I went, oh, my God, I haven't said a nice word to myself in the last 2 years I've been going through this. And the next morning I woke up, and there was nothing. No gasping for air. Just one kind word from me to me. And it's like your spirit's name, same name as you, and it gets really tired of being ignored. And so when you say, I love you in your name, you have an ability to heal yourself. Because the word love is healing, and it's never more healing than when you use it with your own name. But just remember, the answer comes with a question.